Hello.
Hi there.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Kicking butt and taking names.
I love it.
That's what we have to do. We have no choice.
Right? I know. It's kind of it's one of those things where we have to. We don't have a choice.
It's true. Very true. Well, the benefit is that the more names we get, the more people we get to contact, and the more influence we get to have.
Very true. So
I got a question for you.
All right.
I have a bunch of questions for you. Oh, we should probably do like introductions first. Hi, I'm Knut. My brief history, I was the state chair of the Washington Libertarian Party. I worked with that group there we had several conventions. We brought in big speakers from California. We brought in speakers from like Chris Novoselic from Nirvana, a whole bunch of progress we made there in Washington State. Yeah, it was fantastic. And we actually built up a big enough party movement that we were able to have monthly donors to the scale of size that we were able to get an office. We were able to get T-shirts for volunteers. We were able to get, supplies if we ever needed it. That was my most successful venture in the Libertarian Party.
I'd love to pick your brain on that.
Yeah. It's actually one of the things that I'm most excited about is what to do to get over the hurdle of 3 years of a lot of people dormant, and then suddenly people are getting involved and getting excited about it. So I think I might have some things.
Yeah, there's actually a grassroots team for Joe's campaign that we kind of discovered each other because they're all the big admins of the big Facebook groups. So there's quite a few people, and part of the people were from the Let Her Speak. So we've kind of formed a group. And part of what we're trying to do is figure out how we're going to take all of those Facebook groups at this point, we have some that have Joe's main page has hundreds of thousands. So we're trying to figure out how to roll all of that. So we have some people, and there's a group that was like Pollsters for Joe. I mean, we're trying to figure out how to harness all of that and how to move forward with it. So we are working on it, but I think that the states need to get involved because Florida had that first step, which now California is using, and it's a real big success. It works.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the first step, where we just identify all the seats in the state that are open, and then get people to run for them. So that's
I think that has to be a part of the thinking in the process, because we have had a similar process where we looked at in our state, in Utah, we looked at a various number of seats, and we have people in different districts who want to run for certain positions. And so obviously we support them any way we can. We actually were able to get our second congressional district candidate on the debate stage. Big national, statewide debate, not national, that would be fantastic, but the statewide debate, and he was really excellent. And so so it's that dual-edged side. I have friends who have run locally and won city office seats and other local seats. Mayor, we had Utah's first openly gay and libertarian mayor, which was pretty incredible. He took his police off of pot patrol. What else did he do? He forgave a bunch of fines for people that had these ridiculous fines. He did a bunch of stuff, and he wanted to return. He returned his salary. I mean, there's all kinds of things that he did.
We need to make something where it's like institutionalized, where we can hear about these things, where we have like other libertarians have done this. I've heard about the pardoning of fees and stuff before from other candidates. So I think that, kind of national isn't doing it, but as libertarians, we don't see that national is us. We have to either volunteer for national or give them some sort of direction. We're just, and I guess we all are part of this crowd, maybe not you so much, but we're all kind of sitting around going, gee, it sucks that national hasn't done something of this kind. And then we're just like, it is very frustrating. Because
It is.
Republicans and Democrats have full-time staff. They have thousands of people that are full-time staff, and we don't. We have, I think, 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. And
Mhm.
so we can't compete. And so we just kind of all sit around and twiddle our thumbs and are like, oh, it would be great if we did it. So this time, I think the grassroots is going to be in charge of, trying so I
Yeah.
actually am, a full disclosure, an elected official here in Miami, and I got the seat because there was a community council seat for my area that had
Nice.
been vacant, and I didn't know this because the commissioners would just uh, name somebody. So since the seat had been started in the, I believe in the late 80s or very early 90s, nobody had ever run for my seat. I was the
Wow.
first person to actually run and not get an appointment. So I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of these seats, as
Yes.
well as other seats, and we just don't know about it.
Yeah. Well, that's. I think that goes to exactly what you're talking about is finding these seats. And I'll tell you one other thing. Not only did we elect half a dozen people to these local offices, from mayor to city council. These are people who go to their city council meetings, and I think that's got to be part of the process. Because imagine going to Congress, being elected to Congress, and then your first 3 months there, you're like, okay, where's the cafeteria? How do I submit a bill? Who do I talk to? So going to
That
these city
happens.
council meetings gives you an idea of what you're dealing with, the temperament of the people you're going to be serving with, and
How
it
it
also gives you
works.
a chance to speak. And we've had people who speak at city council meetings, and the people in the town are like, "That's who I want as my city council representative."
Right. And
I
I think
would
it
love,
says something when you actually show up and you go to these things and you
yeah,
show an interest, because unfortunately, that's something else that we had to learn here in Florida. We did elect a lot of people that were like, I want to run for it. And then they got the seat as libertarians, and then they don't actually show up. So that's a
thank you.
huge problem.
Another huge problem. Yeah, it's we don't just want a win on the books. We want a win
That'll
in the
actually
sense
do
that
the job.
we want
Yes.
people who actually want the job. And I'll be honest, I have had libertarians that I guess they're commonly called paper candidates. Like they're running on paper just so there's some choice for the public. But I've had libertarian candidates that I just haven't had confidence in that they would serve, and I've been honestly reluctant to give them my vote because I don't want that embarrassment of getting. We actually have another libertarian in another state got elected to their I think it was city council. It was actually bigger, like county council, something like that. And they got elected, and they just voted willy-nilly with the rest of the crowd. They weren't steeped in libertarianism at all. Voted for tax increases, voted for everything. Like, okay, that's not a win either.
That's not a win.
So
No.
what we want are educated people who know the district, who know the position they're running for. Okay, one last anecdotal story that that's what the world's made up of. We had a candidate in Washington. There was a big state fair, people coming from all over the place. The guy's running for, it was a state congressional district.
So
And people were coming up to him and saying, hey, why should I vote for you for, what would you do? What's your interest in this? And he said, well, the first thing we have to do is we have to get the United States out of the United Nations.
Whoa.
Dude, you are never going to vote on getting the United States out of the United Nations as a Washington State local representative. Like, do you realize you're running, first of all, for a state rep, not to go to Washington, D.C. You're going to be in the state house, the little one down in Olympia.
Right.
So, like, people knowing the position they're running for, as well as having some
we need
degree.
to provide some of this too. I mean, I think that we don't have, so public schools at which most of us attend don't have some sort of education on civics. I mean, yes, you get a little bit of civics, but you don't get the hardcore, so we kind of have to maybe even teach people what they're going for. I'm not sure what the solution is here.
Yeah. I think that hits the nail on the head, though, about, or well, maybe it's in a general way. It shows one of the problems that we're facing in getting people to run, because oftentimes we'll have people come to their state party and say, hey, I want to run. Like we had Dan Cotton, who's a doctor. He ran for governor, He's running for governor in the next few days. I voted for the man. He's very intelligent, very much interested. This is an example of the spectrum of people we're dealing with. He's a doctor, and he wants to invest in the Utah Libertarian Party. He wants the party to grow. And so what we want to do is not take advantage of that situation, or no, we want to take the proper kind of advantage of that situation in building the infrastructure, building the some kind of marketing arm, and so just a few. We need to have that basic structure of what a state party needs to look like. Because honestly, like you hit the nail on the head. I'm not going to use that phrase too much. Just maybe 2 more times. You are talking about all of these volunteers who have the interest of building the party. They're now soaking in liberty's brine, like you're soaking in it. People like, oh, this is what it's like. It's about us keeping personal and economic strength with us, with the people. That's how it should be. Why am I sending all this money off to Washington, D.C. in the hopes that some of it might come back with a crony representative? Let's just keep it here.
We need to know that this is an option. We need to be talking about this, throughout the 3 years in between elections. We need to be out there doing these things. And so I think we've all kind of come to this conclusion. There's kind of a changing of the guard in the Libertarian Party a little bit, from the older crowd who's been doing things the way they've been doing it. We've seen it now with this election. Even though I think Dr. Jorgensen is amazing and wonderful, and I'm really proud of our candidate, I think that we've all seen that we've run a campaign that is not a 2020 campaign. We're stuck at home. We have all these amazing tools, and yet we're still trying to kind of, to some degree, and I mean, again, it's the first time we've ever run a candidate in a pandemic, but we're still doing things very much the way we would have done it in 2016 or in 2012, or, we're just not evolving the way a small party should.
It's true.
Party should.
I think that's very true, and some of it is definitely related to the pandemic, and of course some of it is also just related to the fact that the infrastructure that we all wanted to be there in place was severely lacking, and that I think is what we're all seeing as equally as big a threat as the corporate media paying no attention to the independents.
Right. And that's something that we need to know also as delegates who go to convention. I mean, we need to know that before we choose, I think that's something that the vast majority of us maybe didn't even have a clue. Before we choose our candidate, we need to know that they have the infrastructure in place to run a national campaign. So, these are things that we're learning. We're young and we really don't know. But I think Hornberger and Vermin Supreme were the only ones that had had their websites, had everything done. So I think, and I'm not saying that they would have been better candidates. This is just throwing something else out there. We need to know that we have to have a candidate who has their website done and their marketing ready to go. It's a little, it's learning curves. We're just learning.
The learning curve. And one of the things you've got to be able to do you know what a SWOT analysis is?
I do not.
So in business, they have a thing called a SWOT analysis. And what you do is you get a big, I have a whiteboard over there. You have a big whiteboard or post, just a huge thing you can write. Chalkboard is fine. And you write strengths, weaknesses, assets, and I always have the wrong last letter there. Strengths, weaknesses, attributes, assets, and threats. Okay. And so what are your strengths? What are your strong points? What are the things you have? Okay, well, we have, we're anti-war. We are pro keeping economic strength local. We want you to keep your whole paycheck. I mean, so let's stop debating about the minimum wage. And let's just say you keep your whole paycheck. Imagine a 20 or 30% increase in the economic power in your neighborhood. Right. That's what we're proposing. Like what are your, and then getting down to candidates' strengths and weaknesses. Okay, what are your strengths as a candidate? Okay, well, I'm totally steeped in, the libertarian answers, libertarian positions to all of these crises that were coming up. Okay, great. How articulate are you? How capable are you of going into a crowd of people and having a conversation one-on-one, that when people walk away from that conversation, they aren't feeling like they were condescended to or talked down to.
Right.
And then what are your weaknesses? Okay, we don't have, $100 million for our campaign. So how do we get creative with that? Well, like you say, there are social media pages where people are joining up to help. But the trick is, how do you get 100,000 people to donate $10? How do you get,
it can be done.
Yeah.
The question is, we haven't broken that code. I mean, we haven't figured it out. But also, I think it comes down to our branding. We don't have a one cohesive branding across the board. We don't have an easy way if you're a local candidate that wants to have a website. I mean, we have plenty of really technical people in the party, and then you have people like me that I could barely make a Zoom call work. So, we need to have in place infrastructure where a person who's an otherwise fantastic candidate can just plug and play, with their stuff. So I think as a party in general, we have a lot of work to do, and I hope we take this on in these next 3 years, leading up to our next, and of course we have almost 600 candidates across the United States running as libertarians. So, hopefully a great number of these get in, the majority, hopefully. And we can, have more people see that we're actually moving forward. It's just
one of the things that we were working on in Washington. I've heard about it from other states as well, and I don't know where the seed was originally planted. So whoever, all credit to whoever originally had this idea. But it was essentially, this is before the internet era, by the way. This is going back quite a while. But like as a fly on the wall in some of these meetings, they said we need to have the candidate in a box. So you're running for office, here's a box. It has our brochures, it has our logos, it has all of those things, the branding. We recommend this book for local office, this book for statewide office, and just, it gives you all this is the basic knowledge and information you need to have on running for that office. Right. And part of that is including a calendar of events, like for your state. Okay, there's the state fair on this day. Lock all these dates in your calendar. Well, this could all be done digitally now.
Right. It should be something that we already have, that you just go to the LP website, maybe even if it's segregated off to something where you need a password or whatever the case may be.
Right. Yeah.
We should have just something where you can take it and make it work for you. And, you tailor it to the issues that are important to your city, state, whatever. Because not everywhere, I live in Florida right now. I see you with the beanie. I'm going to assume it's a little chilly where you are.
It is chilly.
While it's pouring rain outside and probably 85 degrees. So, you can't, we live in very different parts of.
Yeah. I'm also in my basement. This is my new office that I'm setting up for. I've got some music I'm recording, and I also use the same gear for Zoom calls and things like that. So slowly getting more and more activity, but just in the spirit of exactly what we're talking about. Because we have here statewide, we had I think it was a 46% increase in membership in 2018. I think it went from over 10,000 to just about 15,000 members. Or not members, excuse me, registered libertarians. See, that's the other challenge. You get people to join the party and register as libertarian, and then us having a budget to be able to send a postcard or something to that registered libertarian saying, hey, look, Libertarian Party of Utah or Florida or whatever, under new management, we are here and we're looking for, we are not going to take this next election lying down. We want your help. We want, if you can donate your time, we want a couple hours a month from you. Right. If you can donate your treasure, we want you to donate 1 hour of your labor's worth. Whatever you're paid per hour, we want 1 hour of labor per month donated to the party. That's what we're asking. And start asking. That was the other thing, too. We live in Washington. We would have dinners and conventions and other things, and people would be like, yeah, that's cool. I heard all these speakers talk, but no one passed around a bowl saying, hey, donate.
We're not good at asking.
Cards. Yeah, asking.
We're not good at asking.
Cards said your credit card number, and of course people wouldn't do that today, but we could have an app.
Right. But part of it is just asking. A lot of people leave our events thinking, and I traveled around with Joe's, not traveled around with, but I met up with Joe's campaign in several locations. And, the last one I was at was in Austin. Oh, no, actually Cleveland. When I went to the Austin event. And that was the first time that I'd gone to one of our events where they're like, please contribute here. And I was like, this is missing. This is missing in all of our events. I mean, here in Miami, we had a problem with Spike's event. Our location was closed down the day of the
Right.
event. So ours was a little different, but we didn't monetize it. We didn't make a penny we didn't spend a penny, but we also didn't make a penny for
Right. Exactly.
so, we definitely need to get better at those things. And then
Yeah.
on
And
my end, I'm reaching out to the Hispanic community. That's my focus for the next 4 years.
yeah.
I did
Yeah.
have a small part with Joe's team, an unpaid position, and we had zero budget. And
Yes.
we have managed to reach out to the Hispanic community, but I think that there was a huge miss, not only in the party but in Joe's campaign. There's 30 million Hispanics that can vote in the United States, and we offer the best platform for them. We're the party that we're like, please come into the United States and pursue that American dream.
Yeah.
We are that group, and they're the
Right.
perfect people for us. That's 30 million voters that would, and we're not
So,
reaching out to them.
so that's actually one of the things that when I um, first moved here back to Utah from Washington, I met so many people who were from Mexico. I actually work with many who were from Mexico, and I also work in the medical industry. I work at a hospital, so I work with patients all the time, and I work with people all the time, and I hear their stories, and I know that it's true. I hear so frequently about how they're struggling financially, or sending money back home to family in Mexico, and I think the question I have, and this is maybe something, we have several radio stations here in Utah, and I'm sure in Miami, in Florida, and all over in all these different states. There have to be many different Spanish state radio stations, and I think putting together public service well, they would be ads. They wouldn't be public service announcements. Those they run for free. But they would be political ads. But if you had, let's say that you recorded in Utah, let's say that the things that the people were most interested in were getting rid of the drug war. They had family and friends who were in jail. We have several stories about that here. So if you had some 30-second or 1-minute ad that talked about, rehabilitation with family is going to be a better solution than putting someone in jail, where they usually are hardened and have to join a gang in order to be safe in prison. Would you prefer that we put our resources into rehab or into prison sentence? And making a 30-second, 60-second ad, and then having a quarterly convention with getting one or two big libertarians, and even if that's on a Zoom meeting like this, but you say we're having a huge event, we're doing a big fundraiser, and our goal is to raise $10,000 to run these ads, and then we run those ads on the radio stations, and we say, in the next election there will be libertarians on your ballot. And this could go for every state where ballot access is secured this year, And so we could say, okay, we have ballot access in your state. We will have candidates on your ballot, and come talk with us, and maybe getting some representatives from that movement to step up and say, I'll be someone that people can call if they have questions about where the libertarians stand on this or that in Espanol.
So that's kind of where I am. I've been Zach Foster out of California and I started a show on LP, on the LP website on their YouTube page. So every Wednesday night we do a show completely in Spanish. It's the only one. We're the only people from the LP actually having a show and doing so. So we committed to doing it at least until the next 4 years. We've committed to doing this weekly, and we've gotten people from all over. I've actually had a few of these type of things with the Mexican, from from Potosinos, which is San Luis Potosino in Mexico. I had a Zoom call with them that was
Nice.
viewed thousands of people. Puerto Rico, we had a call with them recently. They actually don't have a chapter in Puerto Rico, that they want to start one so that they
Wow.
can come to our conventions, and
Yes.
they can't vote for president, but they can definitely come to our conventions and participate. So we are
Yes.
seeing, we had I don't know if you saw, we had a big event. Both Spike and Dr. Jorgensen have had conversations with Gloria Alvarez, who's from Guatemala. She ran for president. She's the youngest person to ever run for president in Guatemala. She has millions of views. Actually, she just did this week with Dr. Jorgensen, and she got, as of yesterday, I think 125,000 views on her, on her different
Yeah.
platforms. So
Right. Right.
and
Right.
this is being seen by Hispanics all across the world, not just here in the U.S. So I think we need to hit this community. I'm part of the community. I'm Cuban / Venezuelan, and we just need to do more. And there's
Yeah.
so many great ideas of stuff that we can do to move forward, and just not enough time or people. We just really need more
Yeah.
people.
That's the thing, is allocating resources properly, because you could easily get burned out. I know from being one of a handful of people in the state before who were regularly showing up at the meetings and regularly getting involved. I've been that guy.
Right.
But I've also been the guy
We've all been that guy.
at huge events. And, I've had the main stage at HempFest in Seattle, where, went and talked about the deregulation of hemp, wanting to get this plant out there to compete with oil and to compete with plastic. I always tell people we are laminating the ocean with plastic right now because we're constricting hemp.
Right.
And which for every plastic that you have out there, there is an equal and opposite hemp that could be made of a plant.
I mean, look at just the straw issue. We could be making straws out of hemp. I mean, it's just amazing. We have all these problems that we're like, how are we going to solve this? And the solution is there. We just are like,
absolutely.
Those people are going to get high off of hemp, so we can't let that happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's big. Yeah. So,
right. George Washington grew hemp. I mean, we like him, right?
Right, exactly. Well, I also like my whole Twitter handle is about, like, people say libertarians are terrible with the environment. You guys are terrible with the environment. I think we have the best environmental positions. My Twitter handle starts off with, no government, industry, or corporation has the right to pollute the lungs of the children downwind, or to pollute the soil or the water of the farmers downstream. Your pollution doesn't have the right to trespass on my property. Your pollution can't trespass on my property. And so if you can't produce your product cleanly, you shouldn't be able to produce your product. And that is property protection, which is at the core of the libertarian movement. So I think we have the best solutions for the environment,
I agree. Just today I was watching some documentary on nuclear fusion, and how we could have nuclear power, and it's depends on who you believe. It could be safer, it could be cleaner, it could be way more efficient. We don't, so we've known that we can have this technology for probably close to 50 years, and yet we don't move on it. And there's, we don't actually pay attention to the science. We're paying attention to, people that are saying that it's bad. And that's so I feel like a libertarian president would be different in this sense, because, well, our interests are different. We're not going to go after, big coal, well, hopefully, right? That's the theory.
Right. Well, I think the thing is, the other thing, not only is it getting the barriers for nuclear, hemp, tidal power, solar power, not only is it getting the barriers that have been put up by the government aside, it's also ending the subsidies of, for example, oil, plastics, and it's not even getting into healthcare. We're just talking about how we're taking
subsidies all the way across the board. Honestly,
we are siphoning. We're siphoning billions of dollars from our community, and we're giving it to corporations. We're giving it to foreign governments. We're giving it to the largest polluters on the planet, and that could stop if we stopped voting for people voting for this lesser of evil things, which is a whole other conversation for a whole other day.
Yes, that is absolutely. I mean, I just was speaking to a group of Nicaraguans about the lesser of two evils, and that's just the thing, is that we're just so conditioned to this bipartisan system, and we're
Yeah,
just like, most people are just kind of like, hold your nose and pick one of the other. And I think that, it's, again, it goes back to education. Just, it's so hard to get in a word in edgewise when people are just yelling over each other. And
yeah,
Dr. Jorgensen talks about this all the time. We have to go to the ballot box to get what we want. Otherwise, we're just fighting each other, and it's not going to change until we figure a way for everybody to get what they want without having to have this fight.
right, right. Well, and this is why one of the things well, I'm going to get some, this I'm going to believe is very uncomfortable territory for you. Because I'm talking about the left, the radical left. And I have been trying to Rubik's Cube the problem of the anti-capitalists, the socialists, the communists, this movement that's out there. I have been, one of my pillars of activity is to try and decode and undo that that teaching, because a lot of it you see in common debates between libertarians and socialists, where libertarian says, hey, we should eliminate the income tax, and what is the first thing that the reply is from the person on the left? Who's going to pay for the roads, right?
Or school, or all the other
things that we could actually had figured out before the 70s, before there was a Department of Education. Right. So that to me is one of the things I've been trying to figure out. Everyone knows about the history of Ron Paul building these on-ramps from conservatism and republicanism, these on-ramps to the Libertarian Party. Ron Paul did that. He successfully built these on-ramps to the party. But there hasn't really been, I think Tulsi Gabbard was sort of the beginning of building an on-ramp from the left, but there was a lot of, how dare you libertarians even think about Tulsi Gabbard? Well, we were talking about Ron Paul, who was a Republican, So I've been trying to figure out how to calm down the gatekeepers in the Libertarian Party on people coming from the left, which doesn't mean it's okay to say you're coming from the left, so it's okay for you to keep all of your tear down the rich and destroy capitalism thinking, because that's out of line with the NAP. I think that's where the obligation is, and I've successfully done this with dozens and dozens of people from the left, both in person and online, where we start having a conversation about capitalism or about this, and we quickly refine, okay, it's corporatism that's the problem. It's right. Big money colluding with the government. And then I also, in the same conversation, have them understanding and agreeing that there's an even bigger problem with government, which is something that I like to call shielded bureaucracy. And shielded bureaucracy is just that. It's a bureaucracy that we don't know where their last $500 million budget went. They can't account for it. And
they
guess
don't
what?
Know where it is.
Well, someone knows where it is.
The Pentagon doesn't know where they put their money. I mean, they just lose billions of dollars, and they're like, "Whoops, I thought I left it over there."
And additionally, they have the situation where if they don't spend that $75 million that they asked for on this budget, the next year they won't get that $75 million. So they have all this money they need to spend. So they start buying toys and 3D printed mugs that cost thousands of dollars and right. Things that you and I could get for a couple bucks. And so there's all kinds of bad practices that have been allowed to sustain themselves. And not only that, the Pentagon has something called the BRAC Commission, which is the Base Relocation and Closure Report that they give to Congress and the Senate and say, these are the bases you can close. We don't need these anymore. This would save us, hundreds of millions of dollars. But the congressmen say, well, I don't want to be the congressman that shut down that base. I won't get reelected. And so, it's like saying, I don't want to end the drug war. I've got to be tough on crime.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So
I hear this all the time, but going back to the left and how you can convince them, I wish I knew how to do it. However, what works for me quite a bit is, I do come from countries that have gone through this. So
Yes.
actually, I lived in Venezuela from the late 80s until the mid 90s, which Venezuela was a completely different country than it is now.
Yes.
Venezuela was actually one of the richest, if not the richest country in Latin America. And then, we ended up getting a little bit of socialism, and now it's a little bit of communism. And so we are now the poorest country. Most people in Venezuela make about $1 a month.
Right.
It's a dire circumstance. There's no longer, you don't even have pets anymore because people have had to eat their pets. They eat out of the garbage can. So, when American leftists tell me that this is a great system, and I often ask them, well, have you visited Venezuela lately? Have you gone to Cuba? Because my family has been affected by Cuban socialism, communism for the last 60 years. I just recently took my own children to the demilitarized zone in South Korea, North Korea border to
Really?
show them what it's like. And the thing that struck all of us the most, that we were all commenting on, is it's exactly like the United States and Cuba. I am 90 miles away from my family, right here where I am, 90 miles. Most people can get in a car, drive 90 miles and make it there. Obviously, it's an island. You can't drive there, but we could boat there. We could whatever. And I am so far from being able to see my family, being able to have a relationship with them because of these political struggles. And it goes back to the same thing. When I lived in Venezuela, gasoline was $5 to fill your entire tank. It was pennies to buy a tank of gas. And with $5, not only would they fill up your tank of gas, but you had somebody that would pump it for you and would clean your windshield and would check out your engine oil. And, it was a full service for $5. What happened once Chavez and later Maduro took over? They got rid of the corporations that were handling the petroleum in Venezuela. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the entire world. Forget about Saudi Arabia. Venezuela is the country, and it belongs to the country. So, what has happened now? Most people don't have electricity in Venezuela. They can't afford gasoline. So when the government became the source for, this industry, once they removed the actual corporation that was funding it, where it was working wonderfully, once they put in government people, it just completely fell apart. We can't even, the extractions in Venezuela are at a minimum. They are at the lowest point they've ever had. It's a colossal disaster. So all these times that I hear these leftists saying, well, but we should all own it, this is what happens.
Right.
It's tragedy of the commons almost.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, here's my biggest brick wall that I hit talking to people about Venezuela from the left. It is often that, it was the Americans meddling that caused all of these catastrophes to happen.
I hear that a lot.
It's as if the marketing team is really trying to stay one or two steps ahead of the conversation, and instead of saying it's like people say, Venezuela, that's not even real socialism. That isn't real communism.
And neither was Chile, and neither is Bolivia. Neither is Nicaragua. I mean, we can go around the world, and there are, Venezuela and Cuba aren't the only examples. We can go down, all these different countries that have tried socialism or communism, and they inevitably fail 100% of the times. So we can keep trying it. I mean, sure, why not? You can vote your way into socialism and communism, but you got to fight your way out. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Exactly.
Venezuela is begging for the United States to go over there and remove this problem.
Oh, I know.
And we're not going to, even though they are the largest reserves of oil. I mean, I just can't imagine.
I also wonder about in Cuba as well as another example. I mean, my heart goes out. I read the stories about the crumbling infrastructure and families, dying in homes that fall down if there's even anything in the area like an earthquake or whatnot. There's crumbling infrastructure in Cuba, and an incredible resourcefulness as well as in the people living in Cuba. And I'm just stunned by the few bumper stickers where it's the few small things, like we send our doctors all over the world to help people and we have a really good education system. Okay, I understand that you have some good things that you've been able to figure out. But if you look at, let's look at Europe, let's look at Scandinavian countries. A lot of times the socialists and the left, people on the left say, like you say, we want the workers to own the means of production, and on and on and on. Okay, would you guys be making the same argument if you lived in the social democracies of Norway or Denmark or Sweden or Germany? Would you be calling to tear down the governments of in these social democracies? Because if you could live in these social democracies over in Europe and be content and not feel like you have to tear down the government, maybe you should rethink the system that you're actually advocating for, because all of those countries, all of those European countries are market-based economies, free market-based economies, not free, but they're market-based, they're capitalists.
Yes,
they're capitalist countries. And they do fund their social programs. They have transparency. And so I often will tell people on the left, like, you want Medicare for all. You want free education. Let's not even disagree on those. I'm not going to say I don't agree with you. Personally, I don't think that's the solution to making better healthcare. I don't think that's the solution to better education. But let's not get hung up on the desire for Medicare for all. Can we take a current, honest, clear all the filters away, all the Snapchat filters that are the rhetoric that our government gives us when they run for office, and then take a look at Washington, D.C. You see all the corruption, you see all the graft, all of the billions of dollars going to corporations and not going to the project. You see the bureaucracies that are job programs that the Democrats and Republicans put in place for their buddies. You're asking that system to do Medicare for all. You're asking that corrupt system to pay for education for all. You're asking for this entirely inept, corrupt, horrible group of representatives who don't really represent the people. There are very few people they actually represent. And you're asking us to trust them with Medicare for all.
Well, I mean, the same people, the same argument I use all the time. Those same people that you're talking about, that we are asking to represent us and to make these decisions for us, those are the same people that made it illegal for you or I to purchase our medicines, the same ones we buy here, across the border for less money. They made it illegal. I mean, I don't understand how people can see that, hear that, and go, but they care about me. Listen, if they cared about you, they want you to get your medicine, even if you have to go across the border to buy it cheaper because you can't afford it in your own country. That would show me, oh, they care. They at least let us go buy it in Mexico, because I can buy whatever medicine in Mexico for $5, right? Where here in the United States, it's maybe $500.
Exactly.
So I think that if they really cared about us, we wouldn't have these laws on the books.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't be dealing with them. But going back to the Cuba thing, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
going back to the Cuba thing, what people don't realize is before Fidel Castro, Cuba had an over 98% literacy rate. So while they like to take, look at all of this literacy there is in Cuba, we already had that. Actually, Cuba, same thing as Venezuela before Chavez took over. Cuba before that was the #1 country in Latin America, the #1. We had, Cuba actually had cars, ahead of the other countries. We had TVs before. So it's not like we were these barbarians that needed socialism to come in and educate us and teach us. We already had all these wonderful things. We weren't perfect. We had a somewhat of a dictator before Castro. So it's never perfect, but you don't have to tear down the system to make it perfect. And Cuba is a great example of that. And with the doctors that they like to say that they send out to all of these countries to help, it is very true. They do that. However, it is a business for Cuba. It's part of their domestic product. My uncle, uncle in Cuba, is a cardiologist, and he got sent to Brazil to work. He gets paid about $20-something a month to live in Brazil. He is not allowed to take his family, so his wife and his children have to stay behind in Cuba. He must work the hours that they give him. They let him stay in a place. They have like a place, and they provide for him. But if he can't defect, because if he does, his family back in Cuba gets hurt. So he is basically working, and he sees how people in Brazil, doctors in Brazil, get paid a lot more than he does. But he is a free agent. He isn't able to go work for those maybe, and again, I don't know, maybe $1,000. Let's just use some number. Maybe a
Right.
doctor in Brazil makes $1,000 a month. He has to work for those 24, and that is it. So yes, Cuba does some great things in the sense of they send doctors around the world, and those are needed. But it's not that Brazil's paying $24 a month for him. Brazil's paying Cuba a large sum of money for it, and Cuba gets to
Yes.
keep the money. So
Right.
again, it's the good intentions that the left has. They just don't know the whole story.
If we use different, if we took away all of the words that we use to describe that situation and just looked at the reality of it, it wouldn't be very different than slavery.
It is slavery.
You
Absolutely.
know?
It is a form of slavery. I mean, obviously, my uncle decided to become a doctor, but he decided to become
Right.
a doctor to practice in Cuba.
Right.
He's been sent, to several countries at this point. He's had to go to
Yeah.
Venezuela for a time period. So it is to some degree slavery. He just doesn't know any better. For him, it's either $15 in Cuba or 24 in Brazil. And in Brazil he gets to eat all sorts of food and have access to all sorts
Yeah.
of things. So, you
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
but they don't let you take your spouse, for example. Because
Yeah.
I mean, the
Exactly.
moment you take your spouse and your children, you're not coming back.
Yeah. Tutto bene.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it is a form of slavery, and it's
Yeah.
very sad how people can want this for other people. When I hear that people here in this country want, you know, want
Yeah.
Medicare for all, or want doctors, force vaccinations, and
Right.
they should all be free. I wonder who's going to go to medical school.
Mm-hmm. Well, $24. Wow. Um,
I mean, it's not even the $24. They could be paid more. It's the fact that you
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
have a choice.
It's hardly.
And I don't want to compare it to slavery, because what we did to slaves in this country was absolutely horrific. And
Yeah.
I'm not
Fair. Fair.
equating. Yeah,
That's very fair to say. It is a very different scenario to the American slavery, which especially in its cruelest time was absolutely abhorrent and terrible.
absolutely.
But in general, in human history in general, this, if you removed all of our thoughts and emotions about the subject, it would be very similar, equivalent to the concept of slavery. You're not free to go. You aren't free to leave. The rest of your life is dedicated to this cause. And whether you agree with the cause or not, you cannot extract yourself from it. And so talk about the workers not having control over the resources. I mean, maybe all the doctors feel like they're doing it voluntarily. Maybe they are. Maybe it's possible that they really are just dedicating themselves to the cause. But when you remove the shackles, the proof is in the pudding. If you remove the shackles and gave the opportunity for them to leave, would they stay or would they go? If they would go, that is not free agency keeping them there.
I can't speak for all Cubans, and I probably should not say this because my uncle and a lot of my family still lives there. But I think, given the option, he might want to consider staying
Yeah,
somewhere else.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there is a fear. Like I said, I do have a lot of family, and anytime I post things, anytime I do things, there's always that moment of, am I possibly setting them up? Now with
Mhm.
COVID, my aunt is able to travel here to the United States quite often, because there was a time period where, if you're a Spanish descendant, you could get papers from Spain. So my aunt is a Spanish citizen, but she has her children, and so she can travel. Her kids cannot. She stays in Cuba. She came to the U.S. right before COVID started and went back. Um, you know, Immediately, the COVID had we were kind of starting to shut down. She got taken into custody. They said, "Oh, you come from America, so you're definitely COVID positive," and they took her against her will and threw her into a hospital against her will. She never tested positive. She never had any symptoms. So these, again, they're things that we just take for granted in the United States. We're all up in arms thinking that we may have forced vaccinations. Well, if we keep going down this path, it could actually get worse. And you can have what we see in
Yeah.
China, where they just lock people into
Oh
their
yeah,
homes or their hospitals,
absolutely.
and that's scary.
That is very scary. So, question about I have some of the things I hear from my friends from Mexico. There was I was talking about the migrant worker program with making an easy process, which actually Gary Johnson's idea well, that's why I first heard it, to make an easy migrant worker program so people could come over the border from Mexico easily and safely, not have to go through the crazy mountains in the woods. And they would live here, work here, get paid here. They could send some money back home if they want. That's totally fine. Hey, you do you, right?
Right.
And then they could leave at the end of the season when they're done chasing the tomato, right? Chasing the grape, right?
That's what the majority of them want. They don't want to
Right.
come live here.
Yeah. And
They
so,
have to come live here because once they're over here, they can't leave and come back.
exactly.
So once you've paid, and the latest fees I'm hearing to pay to use a popular word now, a coyote, to try to bring you over, it's close to it. It could vary from $5,000 to $20,000 for these
Yeah.
people. It is their entire life savings. They're not going to come over and pay
Right.
$20,000 every season to come over and work. It just doesn't make
Exactly.
sense. So they
Exactly.
come over, they stay for their entire lives, and then they become dependent on our systems of help because we
Exactly.
offer it. So if
Right.
we had a system where they can come work for 6 months, 3 months, whatever the case may be, and go home, we wouldn't have all this number of illegal immigrants. And again, illegal immigrants, we're libertarians.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, open the door, let them in.
Right. I mean, they're great workers. We definitely need them. We definitely need people to, come help and work in the fields. Even our hemp fields,
Absolutely.
we could definitely use them.
Yeah, I think it is clear that if you are at all free market oriented, you think that people should be as free to travel across borders as money is.
I mean, you
Um,
travel, right? You've gone outside of the US. We all do.
absolutely,
And
absolutely,
and
and
it's a great feeling to be able to go and come home.
yes, exactly. And it's this overly constrictive process where we are not only inhibiting, we're keeping the market from flourishing as much as it could. Trump takes a lot of credit for doing a bunch of deregulation, which is in large part what the libertarians would have done. They would have
Right.
deregulated a lot of these regulations that actually end up favoring one business over another. Oftentimes, legislation that was written by these industry to block out another industry. I give good examples of that if you like, but the same thing goes for this. It is so clear that people, whenever they're free to travel and come and go, have been able to provide a benefit. They don't want to break the law. They don't want to commit these crimes. And people keep talking about these ultra-violent Mexican cartel gangs. Guess what? End the drug war. Problem solved. You
We
take away their
created
money
those gangs.
streams. You know.
We created those
So
gangs. Those unfortunately, I mean, we MS-13 and we've created these problems. The
yeah,
FARC in Colombia, there you can't force countries to follow your rules and then not expect a black market to I mean, we saw that with prohibition here in the United States. So
mhm,
it's just ridiculous that they're blaming these countries for these, violent gangs that again we created. It's just
exactly.
it's a shame that and so a lot of these people, and I live in Miami, we have a lot of them. I'm sure if you're in California and you guys get a lot as well of these people that come, and they're generally speaking very good hardworking people.
Absolutely. Yeah,
They
absolutely.
just want an opportunity. I know
Yes.
plenty of people from all over Latin America and Central America, and it just breaks my heart. I know
Same.
so many mothers who have had to leave their country, leave their children behind as infants. A really good friend of mine, she left her children as infants, and she just became a grandmother, and she has not been home to see her. Yes, and it breaks my heart. If I could
Yeah, I'm
do
with you.
something to get her kids here or her there, I would do it in a heartbeat because
Same.
I
I'm with
can't
you.
imagine the pain. Like, how much do you need money that you would leave your kids behind for 20 years?
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's so sad. This
Yeah.
whole scenario is just so sad.
We we're writing the saddest chapters of human history,
Yeah.
and we're around to observe it and to feel about it.
And to not be able to do anything for them. That's the hardest part, really, because
Yeah.
if you could get a special something, how do you fix these problems that most people aren't even aware of?
Well, So it sounds clear. It sounds very clearly like what needs to happen. And I think some of this is actually very timely, meaning it's an urgent action item. And that urgent action item, I believe, is the planting that seed now that what each of you do, what each of us do over the next 3 years can have an enormous impact on the party and on moving this philosophy forward. Some people will say, if you owe it to your philosophy to dedicate some time to promoting it. And you can see that people on the left are certainly, the people on the left are dedicating their time to their ideas, and the people on the right are certainly doing that as well. So libertarians, the reason our default mode is not to interfere with other people. Our default mode is not to try to micromanage other people's lives. So it's an exceptionally hard challenge to say to libertarians or libertarian-minded people, hey, we need you to dedicate time and treasure to this. But the need for it has never been greater.
We have to change their minds. We have to change their minds. It's not about bothering people. It's about educating people. And the left and the right are doing a great job, but they're just at each other's throat. And it's like they give you polar opposite ideas. Whereas we just kind of remove that, abortion for one, should you be allowed to? Should you not? And those are your two options: completely ban it or completely allow it until the baby is almost born. And then you can, so it should just be a matter of, if you want to do this, that's on you. If you don't, government should be out of it. I think we need to get that libertarian conversation out there, which is there's more ways to view the situation.
Right. And I think
that these two.
I think that's actually the clearest point, that our biggest challenge is a lot of people think, oh, you guys are just trying to promote this third option and have this third other way of doing things. But actually, that's not actually true. 75% of what we want is to unleash you from the constraints that the other two parties have been putting on you.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is our biggest challenge, is how to convey that.
It's the way to change people's mind. It's the way to say, hey, you don't need somebody to give you permission to do things. I think that's something that we grow up with. And they indoctrinate you in school. It's like, can I go to the bathroom? Excuse me, miss, can I go to the bathroom? And so that is what government is right now for us. It's the, excuse me, may I get a permit so that I could put a new kitchen in my,
like braid hair.
Right. So that I can do these things, so that, and by the way, thank you very much for allowing me to live in my house. Here's this extra money so that I never own my home. I think what we really need to be focusing on is why? Why do you have to pay for the rest of eternity for the house that you bought and paid for and is yours?
Yeah.
Why? What other thing do we buy that is never ours?
Right. Yeah, I hear you. I love that our city council that were elected here and other places too eliminated business licenses. So if you want to open a business, you just show up. You sign. Yeah, I want to open a business. Okay, thanks. Good luck.
Great.
Right.
That would be fantastic. We need to do that here.
That's what I'm at city council.
Well, no, I'm community council. Actually, I've gotten in trouble for continuing to say that. I was elected as community council, and our commissioners did not like when, I'm going to take a little bit of responsibility in this. They don't like when we show up to actual meetings that they're having, and we're vocal on it. And so they claim that a lot of people were confusing community council for commissioner. And so they took away our title, and now we are CZAB. It's basically a zoning board now, is what my new title. So I have over 2,000 cards that they printed for me, paper cards, that say that I'm a community council member, but I just keep getting letters reminding me that I can no longer use that title. So I guess I should just throw away all that paper that they printed for me, and so it.
Which is a new gang sign, CZAB, yo, CZAB with the Z.
Yes. I still can't learn the name. It's horrible. What does a CZAB even mean? I mean, I feel like I'm
Right.
part of the next Wu-Tang.
But you're one of the best. You know, you're one of the best CSABs we've ever had. I mean, well done you.
But we don't even have like authority, really.
Right,
I
right.
don't know how anybody can confuse us.
Well, consider it a stepping stool to the next position in 2022, or maybe, I don't know.
Yes, I am.
Or
I am
21.
considering running for one of those commission seats that took away my power from
Yes,
the
right.
community council. So
Right.
we actually have 6 now that were termed out, and 6 in 2022. So
Well, I'm going to take a few dollars and put it in an envelope, and by the time it gets to you, you'll be running for office. So,
yeah, that's more strategy that we should eventually talk about with other libertarians as well. Is, do you announce 2 years before and give them this big edge, or do you announce
right.
2 months
Yeah,
before
yeah.
and show up out of nowhere?
Well, I think another public service announcement in Espanol would be something about if you want to help decide who one of the people on your presidential ticket for your state, the more of you join the Libertarian Party, the more delegates you'll have at the national convention to have an influence on who is going to represent you.
This is true.
On the ticket. Who will be on the ticket? Who will represent you and what do they stand for? ¿Cuándo es su fecha de nacimiento? No, that's not right. I had to learn that in the hospital because you have to ask people their birthday all the time. So
right. It's I agree. We really do need more people to join so that we can have more choices. I mean, again, we have almost 600 people running in the United States. That's giving way more choices. In Florida this year, we're not doing as great as other years. I believe we have 4 or 5 people running for office, in statewide. But there's some places like Texas that have almost 60 people.
wow. Yeah.
We're some states are really killing it this year. And
Yeah,
of course, we have Indiana, we have Rainwater. I mean, there's some really great candidates that are
So what would your message be? Here we are, like a few days before the election. What would your message be to people who have been sitting on the fence or saying they don't want to vote? Like, I don't know, why should I vote?
I mean, it'd be a little hypocritical for me to go do something you don't want to do. So to those people, I really wish you'd change your mind. Please go vote. But I can see how, opting out is an option for them. I don't agree with it necessarily. I think that you need to participate. And even if you don't agree with your options, vote for something else. Vote for increasing the third party movement just so that you can break the duopoly. If you're not going to go vote, at least consider breaking the duopoly. I get it. You don't agree with voting. It's a tough sell. It really is. Some people really believe firmly in the not participating aspect, and that's valid.
Yeah.
And, I'm a libertarian through and through. I cannot tell people to go do things that they don't want to do. It's just not in my nature.
I can advise you as an informed human being that it's in your best interest, but I'm not gonna come over there and force you to vote.
Right. I'm going to say, hey, if you don't do it for you, do it for me. I would really appreciate to break this duopoly. Yeah. So if you weren't going to vote for you, think about poor little Martha over here who works her little tail off. And I still am like begging people to please consider the third option because we just want to have something different. 166 years we've been going back and forth and back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, and 8 years over here, and this didn't work, so let's go back over here, and that doesn't work. After 166 years, can we say neither of them work, or is it not? Do we need 200 years? Like, what's the magic number?
And I really like the idea of being strategic. Like, okay, here you are, weeks before the election or months before the election. Okay, all right, you're not satisfied with who the media is covering, so you don't really feel like voting. But consider this. Next time this comes up, next time this is happening, this will happen again. We'll have another election. This is not the end of our democracy, despite what the media is.
You mean the world's not going to end in 4 years or on November 4th,
If it does, then this conversation will just be us having the pleasure of having time together. But if the world does not end, I want you to think about this. And I'm talking to specifically people who are like the I don't want to vote crowd. Libertarians have, in many races all across America, been 1 to 2 to 3 points low on the percentage needed to get into the debates.
Yes.
Gary Johnson at one time was 2 points away, 1 or 2 points away from getting on the debate stage with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So if you're thinking, oh, it doesn't matter, my vote isn't going to change anything. If you, prior to the debates, said, you know what, I'm gonna stand by the third party candidate for now. If they don't get into the debates, we can have a whole other metric and conversation about the 3D chess of whether or not it's a good idea. But before the debates, when that phone call comes in and they say, hey, are you considering supporting Joe Jorgensen,
right?
Or Justin Amash, or Gary Johnson. When that phone call comes in, if you're standing next to our candidate, you are going to help them get on that stage. So that is a win, because when our ideas get out there, the Democrats and Republicans will either take our ideas that we present at debates, or the Libertarians will get more support for being a clear, concise choice in the matter. So getting into the debates should not be discounted as a small win. It's a pretty big win. And many times when we've done it, like in Utah, we passed in medicinal cannabis after we've had several of our candidates get in debates and talk about it's time to end the medicinal cannabis constrictions. And then we had a statewide initiative and we passed it. So getting in the debate stage is an opportunity to market for the idea of self-determination, self-ownership, all of these factors. And so don't discount the importance and the value next time around, folks. When it comes up, stand with that libertarian candidate who wants you to keep your
even just to make that point even better, why people should do it this time. Because even if they do that, the Commission on Presidential Debates has already shown us that they don't care. So if you go back to 1992, Ross Perot ran, and he actually made it to the debate stage, not because he had to pass some sort of threshold, but because the Republicans and the Democrats actually thought that he would make their candidates better. So he made it to the debate stage. There was a little hiccup along the way, depends on who you believe, whether it was the CIA came and told Mr. Perot that they were going to do something to him or not,
or his daughter. His daughter,
right? There are some issues there. We don't know. He dropped out for 2 months, came back, and still won 19% of the popular vote. 1996 rolls around, and they did not let him debate. So, I mean, it's even more important to break the duopoly now with your vote than it is to do it in 4 years by supporting whoever our candidate is then.
I love it.
Even if we have the 15%, we're probably not going to make the debate stage unless we break the duopoly now.
Exactly.
We have to do this. And the best way to do it is to get over 5%.
Thank you. Because not only is it getting that for this election now, but the media, it gives the corporate media a very easy out to say, we're not going to cover you guys. We're not doing that well. We're just going to let
Nobody
you
wants to hear from you. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to hear from you, so we don't have to cover
Exactly.
you. But if we have a certain percentage, then we obviously show that people want to hear from us.
Right. I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's a very good point. Very good perspective.
And poor Ross Perot, who passed away recently. I mean, it's just he showed that the system is beyond corrupt, and I can't believe that we don't bring it up more often. This happened in 1992. It's been a while. I feel like it was just the other day.
There's a giant sucking sound coming from the south.
Yeah, but he had the money to be able to pay for a 90-minute spot on TV to get his case out there, and people loved him. And if he would have made it, I mean, I'm sure he would have been a great president, but he did get us to balance the budget.
Yes.
And that's the takeaway.
Bill
Clinton balanced that budget because he knew Ross Perot was, what people were thinking. So
yes. I hear it. Well, I tell you, honestly, this has been an absolute pleasure. And I would really, I see the benefit in there being, and whether I'm on the team or not, I see the benefit in having a team of, and you probably would be better at picking a group of hardcore people to both publicly and privately powwow on how to move forward, activating people in their various states. Join your party, join your state party, and so many states. I hear from people all across America who say, "Oh, there is no organization in my state." Well, there's a lot of infrastructure just waiting to be built there, and there's a lot of opportunity for that. So what we need is to find those tools that they can use that you've been talking about. And I know that National has a an email database that those states can use to reach out and find people. So there's a lot of tools and things that needs to be refined. And I'm talking about refined before the spring.
Right, right. But also, we need a separate group, and which is why I really like the grassroots team. There's a lot of people that tell me they don't want to go to meetings and deal with, the bureaucracy, because at the end of the day, any state party has these rules and regulations and paperwork, and you need a treasurer, and you got to run your meetings with the chair, and I'm the vice chair of the Miami-Dade party. So I hear that.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Right. I mean, it's complicated. So I think there needs to be a grassroots movement as well of the LP, where we get together like this and we have these conversations and we talk about what you guys are doing and what we're doing, and bring in, I'd love to hear. I mean, we've got people like Chrissy Witchers in Ohio. She's amazing. She's a great advocate. We've got, oh yeah, I mean, Spike before he decided to run was a great advocate. We've got people like Adam Kokesh. Like, these people have some fantastic ideas. I mean, Adam once told me about this project he was doing where he's going around to dirty streets with a stencil and just putting it down and power washing. He had like a little red wagon with his power wash on it. And, he'd power wash the streets with like a libertarian message. So just like, whatever, all these different ideas work. Love it.
I'm with you. I think it's a great idea. I think there are mountains of opportunities as well. People who are frustrated and fed up, who, if we can put the right messaging together, I think we would find a large number of people who would be interested in doing this. And you're right, a lot of people don't want to be part of like an executive committee necessarily.
I mean, let's be honest, it's boring.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know.
It's boring. You get together and what did you do this month and the reports. I get that part. And so we kind of need like a fun group.
Right. Social group. Well, actually, and that's I think the thing that we succeeded in Washington. That was how we did it, because we had regular dinners where we'd have a speaker come from some organization. That's where we had the citizen audit was brought up in one of those meetings, which is anytime the state is wanting to build a stretch of freeway or build a building or whatever, all of the proposals have to be made completely public so that people out there, citizens, can review these contracts and review them for graft, or, is there someone charging a little extra? They were charging, several, I think it was a couple $1,000s for the orange cones that you and I could buy for, $100 at the construction store. And so, there's all these things that get discovered after the fact when the contract finally becomes public, but there were 2 or 3 other bids that may have been better. And if you have that transparency, then the public feel more confident that their tax dollars aren't being wasted.
We have the ability to do these things. We have the ability to make government completely transparent. We now have everything on the internet. We are all working from home, multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations, and we've managed to put everything online and work from home. Why can't we do that with U.S. government?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. The social part is the fun part, where you say, okay, we're going to have this speaker and that speaker, and it's going to be a Zoom meeting, and everyone show up. And while you're in the meeting, you make sure at the beginning, at the end, you ask for donations, and you say, look, this is what we need. This is what we're doing. This is how we believe representation should be. This is to us what representation is. It's getting people in office. People always talk about campaign finance reform. Like, we need campaign finance reform. Well, that's a great idea and all, except wouldn't it be much better if we just had government with limited powers, and then getting into office wasn't a brass ring and you're now rich for the rest of your life because you got elected for the rest of your life?
So
Maybe,
one of those
maybe
things I've learned about Miami in general, so pardon the interruption,
go ahead.
you know, I was, just because I had a conversation right before this, Miami itself, bringing it back, the commissioners, the seat that I intend to run for or hope to run for, they officially make $6,000 a year. Now, to run for the seat is close to $1 million. And you have to ask yourself, why does it cost $1 million for a $6,000 seat? And the reality is, when they get on these seats, it's a $6,000 actual, salary, but then they pay for your car and they give you a $400,000 budget for your staff. Yes, there's 13 commissioners from Miami-Dade, and they each have a $400,000 budget, each of them. So instead of having one office for all of the commissioners, everybody gets to hire their own staff, their own stuff. Some of them have drivers, they buy themselves cars, and Miami-Dade has an $8 billion budget. So we have budgets bigger than, I believe, 7 states, 7 complete total states.
Yeah.
So, this is why people take that kind of money to get on there.
Right.
And so until we make this public, I mean, I've been not in politics, but I've been paying attention for a while now, and I didn't even know that until recently. So I think that people need to understand that these seats have that much power.
Right, exactly. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and light is the foot that gets $400,000 for campaign HQ.
Millions to be a county commissioner. It's amazing.
Wow, interesting, very interesting. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm delighted to chat with you, and I have a team of people who are writers, and maybe what the next step, again, I'm definitely not trying to invite myself to whatever plans are out there, but I'm just saying that I think the thing I would love to see is to get some scripts and then have someone such as yourself sort of vet them to make sure that they're succinct, pithy, to the point, and then get them recorded and have them as a package available for different states to use to promote off-season promotion of what it is that the Libertarian Party offers, and instead of being dormant for the next 3 years, because that is, we will have a very heavy rock to push up a hill if we sit still for the next 3 years.
We cannot. If anybody's sitting around thinking, I am not going to participate for the next 3 years, please don't. I mean, everybody that's involved with Dr. Jorgensen's campaign is like, we're taking a vacation after November 4th. At least give me a week off. And then, coming in towards the end of November, we need to get, we definitely need to be debriefed. And unfortunately, that's something that we don't have in the Libertarian Party, is that institutionalization of what happened, what worked, what didn't work. So we need to get that done. I believe there's a plan for that this time around. I hope there's a plan for that. And then on top of that, we need to all get together. And I think that, we should do maybe kind of inserting myself here as well, but I'd love to have invite whoever wants to be part of our grassroots efforts as well. Help us, guide us, tell us how you think all these different groups that have all these thousands of people that have joined that want to help, how can we turn them into a powerhouse, not only on Facebook, not only on Twitter, we've got some TikTok people, we've got people that maybe don't want to come to our meetings, but they are all in, and they have been getting people to the polls, and they've been doing stuff. So we need to figure this out. We need to, and quickly, before the end of November, we need to figure out how we're going to keep doing this and how we're going to get people to show up. And, again, I'm really focused on the Hispanic part, but, and that's another part. If anybody that wants to help out Libertario Hispano, we definitely, it's for now, it's a few people that have helped us out, and Zach and myself, and, Latin America is huge. And our goal is not only for the United States. We want to,
so important.
Yeah, we want everybody in Latin America to also come join us. I think it's a movement that is important to everybody.
I agree so much.
Yeah, freedom is universal.
Absolutely is, and it doesn't cost as much as we've been told it does. So
plus. We have some real great people in the party who can come up with all sorts of stuff. We've been real resourceful, and Dr. Joe's campaign has shown that she can, we can run a campaign pretty efficiently. Of
Absolutely.
course, I wish we had more money to buy spots on TV and all the
Right.
other stuff. But she's gotten to, I believe, 48 states, and the reason she didn't get to those 2 other states were COVID related, not because she didn't make it there. So she or
I
Spike
hear
have
it.
made it to the 48 states at least once. And I think that's made a huge impact. I mean,
Yeah,
I got to give it to Dr. Jorgensen and to Spike. They've really worked their tails off,
I
and I
believe
think
it. I believe it.
they've inspired a lot of people. So we got to keep the flames definitely going.
Right. Absolutely. Well, let's continue this down the line.
Absolutely.
And thanks for everything you do for Liberty, because it's brilliant, and you're one of the bright lights shining out there. So keep it up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
All right. Bye.
Bye.